To always get the latest Game Tea, don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us at Twitter at Game Tea Podcast X. You can find us on Facebook at The Game Tea Podcast, and you can find us on Instagram at The Game Tea Podcast. We post frequently, giving you podcast updates, posting gaming news, and the occasional meme. Check them out after the show, and thank you so much for listening to The Game Tea Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another sorta episode of the Game Tea Podcast. This is kind of just like a, I guess if you want to call it a news and updates about the pod and how the three of us are doing. Because I don't know if you've noticed, shit's been kind of crazy lately. Essentially, last week, Czar and I were out at his bachelor party since he's getting married. Through our schedule a little out of whack, so we are just providing this kind of update episode to talk about the podcast a little bit, to talk about what's been going on with us, to give you guys some exciting news about some plans we've got for the future, just a few really cool things. So let's get into it. So first of all, life has been back in kind of the full swing of things. I mean, as much as it could be with the coronavirus, really. I've officially started grad school, and on top of the band that I'm in, and obviously the podcast, my schedule has been pretty busy, but I always make sure that I make some time for my friends and for you guys, obviously. So thank you all who have been supportive to me and my endeavors. Zach has officially gone back to working at the school full-time, which sucks because I don't get to talk to my buddy as much, but he loves his job and I'm very happy for him. On top of that, you heard in the last episode that he just closed on a house for him and his wife, Krista. So yeah, he's been a pretty busy guy too, but not nearly as busy as Czar, who is getting ready to get married at the end of this month. So he's been doing wedding planning. He's been doing preparation work. He's been doing all this crazy well, let's be honest with ourselves, his fiance Lauren is doing most of it, but he's helping, damn it. And on top of that, we just got done with his bachelor party. If you listen to the Wednesday episode, you'll know that Czar and I actually recorded from the location. It went okay. We had a little bit of trouble. I was drinking like it was the end of the world, so my voice was scratchy. I was tired. I was in the sun. But hell, the gaming news has not stopped, and neither will we, damn it. So that's kind of what's been going on with us lately. I wanted to also take this opportunity to talk about where the podcast is at currently and where we want to take it. So the easiest way to get started with that is just talking about some numbers we've got going on. We are at about 1,800 plays of the podcast, which is crazy for a couple of reasons. We've only been doing this since February. Like, we started this podcast less than 7 months ago as of now, and we're already about to hit 2,000 listens on the podcast. And that is simply outstanding, especially since only like 2 months ago, we had the 1,000 listener special. So whatever has been going on in the last couple of months has been wild. We have absolutely been loving it. We can't believe the rate at which this podcast has been growing and how many people like what we're doing. So genuinely, thank you so much for supporting us. On top of that, social media has even been growing a little bit too. Currently at 250 followers on Twitter, which isn't amazing by any means, but still, we've been growing a little bit here and there. So the question is, where would we like to go? We started the podcast in February 15th to be exact, is when we released the very first episode, Blizzard Mayhem. Where do we want to be by February 15th of 2021? Well, we've kind of made some goals here that we think they're not easy goals, but we think we can do them. For one thing, we want to hit 5,000 total listens on the podcast. And if you had asked us if that was feasible at the beginning when we started doing this, we would have said no way. But we've been growing. We've been rolling so fast. Our fans and our friends and our family have all been so supportive. And at this point, the three of us really think that it's a doable goal to hit 5,000 listens by February 15th. And with your guys' help, I think we can hit that. On top of all that, we want to go from 250 to 1,000 followers on Twitter by February 15th of 2021. Again, not an easy goal, but I think it's doable. And hopefully, kind of the end game with those numbers is we would love to start looking for sponsors of the podcast. We really think that it's a feasible goal. We really think that if we keep working hard and we keep at this, then we can really do something with it and we can really take it somewhere. So the final goal here is to try and find some sponsors and really see if we can make this a full-time gig. That would be literally a dream come true, but we've still got a long road and a lot of hard work ahead of us. But the three of us are committed and we think we can get it done. On top of all of that, just the three of us are constantly talking about the general feelings of the podcast. Like we said before, the rate at which the podcast is growing and more people are finding out about us, it's phenomenal. I didn't think it was going to happen so quickly, to be honest with you. We've been enjoying every minute of it. Buzzsprout, which is the site that hosts our podcast statistics and sends out the podcast to, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, things like that. They give us back the statistics of who's listening, how long they're listening to, where they're listening from. And the thing that we've noticed is that we are not just limited to the region in which we live anymore. The podcast has actually started hitting some other points of not just the US, but a few other places in the world too, where we're getting consistent listeners. And that is mind-blowing. And on top of all of that, like we said before, the friends, the family, just the fans, everybody has been so supportive of just reaching out even and tell me that they really like what we're doing, reaching out to Czar and Zach, telling them that they really like what we're doing. It's been phenomenal, and we could not have done this without you guys' support. So thank you all so very, very much for that. But obviously, we wanted to make it a point to say that at the end of the day, the reason why we're doing this podcast is because we absolutely love talking about video games. And it's more than just video games. We love talking about the culture. We love talking about the industry. We love having interesting conversations about video games with people. That's why we started this podcast. Even if all of this momentum and all these great things weren't happening to us regarding the podcast, we'd still be here every Sunday night recording episodes for Wednesday and Saturday because it's what we love to do. It's what we love to talk about. So finally, thank you all so much for all the support and the love. Now, that's pretty much the updates. We think we can hit those goals, and with your guys' help, we think we can do it too. I have one last thing to leave you with before we get out of here today, and it is an announcement that we are having a special guest join us for the end of September in a special episode of the Game Tea Podcast. He is the host of another gaming podcast that we happen to come across. Oh, by the way, that's the other great thing about doing this is the friends that we've started to make from doing it. I love talking to people about their podcasts and what do they think of our podcasts and telling them what I thought of their podcasts. That's really, really cool too. We started talking to this super awesome guy, and I asked him if he wanted to join us on a very special episode of the podcast at the end of the month, and he was ecstatic. Absolutely ecstatic about doing it. So look forward to a very special episode with a very special guest at the end of the, at the end of September. This month has been flying by like crazy. And that is pretty much it for now. We will post some pictures of Czar's wedding on the podcast. A picture of Zach, Czar, and I will be going up. If you wanted to tweet at us and just wish Czar a very happy wedding on September 21st, absolutely feel free to do so. He would absolutely love it. So as a final note, thank you all again so much for listening to this episode of the Game Tea Podcast, and we will see you in the next episode.